Hello everyone and welcome back to Asian Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Sigmar, and in this video we're going to be finishing up my Tzeentch series. That has been a little while now, but we want to get it done, and joining me with this is going to be Max. How are you doing today, sir?
Considering Nurgle's global crusade, pretty well.
Glad to hear it. I just want to say, for people who have watched the other videos, Martin won't be joining us today just because his line of work at the moment in the UK is helping the UK keep going. So I want to thank you very much for that, and I'm sure he'll be with us in another video in not too long. So with this video, now this is all being basically recorded live. It doesn't really get edited because it's all screen recorded. So we don't know exactly how long it's going to be at the moment, but it's probably going to be a bit of a long one because we're going to go through battalions and unit war scrolls to finish off the army. We are going to review all the war scrolls apart from the warband because it's not very good. So we're not going to go like incredibly in depth because otherwise this video will go on for like 4 hours. So we'll do what needs to be covered when it does. And to start, we're going to look at the mortals for the disciples of Tzeentch, and we are going to firstly talk about the Magister on Disk of Tzeentch, which came in the... Is it the Ether War box set? Is that what it's called? Is it
Precisely. Ether War.
Cool,
And let me tell you, I was so disappointed opening that box.
Yeah, this guy, for me, I mean, like I've looked over his rules, and he's a few things are different, but he's very much like the Magister on foot, apart from a couple of differences.
What's nice about him is that he's a mage with a ranged attack, which is just nice to have, and he's quick. He has a decent spell with his inbuilt spell, but that's also the same as the one on foot. So we're gonna do that one after this because it's just as quick as this one flies.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to keep up with things like Zangals on not Zangals, but Zangals and Lightens and like Skyfires stuff, this guy can do it. If you want to get a spellcaster anywhere on the battlefield, this guy is fast enough to do that with a movement of 16. But he doesn't have like a unique spell like you just mentioned, and he is a bit more combat orientated with his teeth and horns attack, I would say. But you are paying an extra 40 points to this guy because this guy is 140 points compared to a normal 100 points for the Magister.
Yeah, at this point it's up to decide whether 1 additional hit point, 10 additional move, fly, and D3 attacks with force 3s, 1 rend, and D3 damage is worth 40 points. On paper it sounds like that, but when you consider that this package is on a mage that's rather squishy...
Yeah, it's not bad. Mainly just disappointing because we're hoping for like a brand new hero. It's almost like if you were doing Flesh Eater Courts and the Archregent was just a slightly different version of the Aberrant Ghoul King in terms of War Scroll. Because I will say this model has got a nice look to it. It's a nice looking model. It's just a shame they didn't make it a bit more different to the normal Magister, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think to like just finish off what this model actually like entails, what you get when you take this model is probably most important, the ability and the inbuilt spell. And I would just read the ability, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
The ability is called Magic Touch. If the casting roll for this model is a double and the casting attempt is successful and not unbound, this model can attempt to cast 1 extra spell this turn. If it does so, and the extra casting roll is a double, the spell automatically fails and this model is slain. If a friendly Magister is slain by this effect, roll a dice before removing the model. On a 2+, 1 Tzeentch Chaos Spawn is added to your army. Set up the Tzeentch Chaos Spawn anywhere on the battlefield within 1 of the slain Magister and more than 3 away from enemy units. That ability, in my honest opinion, is bad.
I would say especially with the risk isn't like a turn on and off like some Skaven units out there, like weapon teams are like high risk, high reward, but you can choose when to use it. This is passive, so you don't get to choose. And yeah, it's unless you like chaos spawns. What I will say is, if you're like on this channel, we do tend to always look at things in a competitive sense, and I would say competitively, the trade-off on this is not worth it. But narratively, it's a fun ability, but it is. You don't want your 140 point model turning into a Tzeentch chaos spawn 50 points. You don't want it to like drop down in 90 points worth.
Yeah, the problem I see with it is it's not reliable enough to go off when you would really want a second spell, and if it does, you can't really be sure if you want to take that second spell.
No, and
because
you can't rely on this guy casting the second spell either, can you? It's not like I'm going to give him another spell because I know he can cast it.
Yeah, it's just it could go off in turn 1 when you're just giving out Mystic Shield because there's nothing else to do. It's just like, oh great.
And then if he turned into a spawn like on the turn 1 just because, like you say, he did that Mystic Shield, you'll be like, annoyed now.
Or it could go off when you're in a combat situation. He is safe and sound behind your lines. And you're getting off your Bolt of Change, just like, oh, awesome! I can cast a second spell, and it's a chaos spawn.
It would be thematic if he turns someone into a chaos spawn and he turns into a chaos spawn coincidentally as well.
Yeah, that would be more interesting, turning him alongside a victim into a chaos spawn.
But yeah, it's not that much. I mean, like, if we just look at his missile weapon, like, he has got a missile weapon, it's cool. So Tzeentchian rune staff, so this has got an 18-inch, 1 attack, freeze hit, force to win, no rend, D3 damage. I mean, it's a range attack, never say no. And then he's got the warp steel sword for close combat, so 1 attack, force to hit, force to win, no rend, 1 damage. And then, the difference this guy is going to have, so he's also going to have the teeth and horns attack, which is 1-inch range, D3 attacks, force to hit, freeze to win, minus 1 rend, and D3 damage from the disc. I mean, nothing to shout about, but a little bit better than the one on foot.
Yeah, the attack of the disc itself is nice, but then again, you don't want this guy to be in melee.
No, more than likely it's because he's had to charge something, like to try and chip a few models off an objective to try and capture it late in the game, or he's been charged by something. That's the only times you'll really be attacking with this guy.
Theoretically, you could charge him into another squishy spellcaster holding an objective somewhere far off.
I mean, he's fast enough to get to the other side of the board to do that, so you could use him a bit of that role, but I do feel like if you're going around doing that, what really is this guy adding to your own army?
Yeah, Tzeentch has better options at mobility than this guy.
Yeah.
So, not all that impressive.
It's a shame.
Decent,
yeah,
but not impressive.
I was gonna say it's a shame because, like, I think, is it he or she?
I'm not sure. I don't think the elongated forehead will give us much information about facial expressions or facial features, but
That's definitely a woman. No, so the he/she. I think it's a nice model, and I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about it first. It's the latest model for Tzeentch, if you don't include like the end of spells. So I thought it would be to get out there, but you could always well, I suppose we'll talk about it in a moment if it's worth it. But like the Fatemaster or something like that. Is it called the Fatemaster? Yeah, the Fatemaster. You could maybe convert it to be one of those. It's like, but anyway, we digress. So let digest. I have eaten recently, so that's probably why that is in my head. But let us move on to the normal Magister on foot. So I just get it up on the Games Workshop website now to go through the war scroll for this guy. So what do we think of this guy? So he's going to cost 100 points, so 40 points cheaper than the disc variant.
yeah, it's effectively the same with 1 less wound without the disc. Of course, without the disc, it can't fly. It only moves 6, and it doesn't have the nice disc melee attack. But other than that, it's identical to its flying counterpart. Which is spell we forgot, but that doesn't matter because both have the same spell. Also, fun thing, you can just literally, if you're sad, you missed the Magister on disc, you can just take this guy and place it on any disc from any kit whatsoever, and it's perfectly accurate.
Exactly.
It doesn't look as nice, but
yeah, I still look. It doesn't look as new, but I still like the look of this guy. Like he hasn't aged badly.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of his pose or its pose, whatever.
Okay.
But it's still a nice model.
Yeah, it's not as bad as like the old.
Also, the spell. Sorry.
That's what I was going to say. So it's not as bad as like the old changeling model or something like that. Right, yeah, the spell. So we've got the Bolt of Change. So Bolt of Change is cast on -7. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within 18 inches of the caster and is visible to them. That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If any models were slain by this spell before removing the first slain model, you can add 1 Tzeentch Chaos Spawn to your army and set it up within 3 inches of the slain model's unit. Not a bad spell.
Yeah, definitely a nice spell, but with the casting value of 7. I believe if you bring those guys and you want to reliably use the Bolt of Change, you want to have the blue scribes in your list, which we will cover later. Because a 7 isn't that easy to cast without any casting bonuses on the caster himself.
No, like a 7 on 2 dice is the average, but the amount of times I've rolled 2 dice and get under 7 is much more than the other way around. So it's a high casting value for something like, you know, what you want to be doing this against is 1 wound models, because you want to be summoning a chaos spawn essentially with this spell. You don't want this spell just to do D3 mortal wounds.
Yep, it can be a nice thing if an enemy hero just has 2 wounds left, because 2, you could somewhat reliably do that. But other than that, yeah, mostly sniping off 1 wound models. But overall, I would say for a mage for 100 points is never bad.
No, especially in an army like this where you like capitalize on those mages and wizards.
Yeah, not the most impressive mage you have access to, but you can definitely justify taking him.
Yeah, and like for like 100 points, not a bad wizard. I mean, like if he has 120, you would be more, I'd say, judgmental over him if he is worth taking or not. But for 100 points, I imagine that is going to be your cheapest wizard, isn't it, for this army?
I think so.
I'm just looking. I believe, without like saying like Karak Acolytes or something, wizards, this guy is the cheapest wizard for the army, so that's good.
Let's just call him the cheapest character wizard.
Yeah, the cheapest hero wizard. Keywords. Right. No, but so he's right. Like we said, so he's got the same spell as the one on disc. We're covering it here because it's easier to read on the computer screen with the war scroll, and he's got the same funky ability of maybe casting 2 spells, maybe being annoyed and turning into a chaos spawn himself. So yeah, I would say for the 40 points decrease compared to one on disc, you're better off taking this guy.
I agree.
Cool. So the next one to talk about is if you've got a battle tome at home, we are going through like the mortals and going from the start of them to the end. So the next one is going to be a named character actually, and that's going to be the Curseling Eye of Tzeentch. Is he still a named character? Thinking he is, isn't he?
I am not entirely sure.
He was.
I mean, even if he isn't, would you ever want more than one of those?
No, he isn't. He isn't a unique character anymore. That's cool. Cool. So he's 160 points. Like you're saying, would you want what? He does a good trick, but do you need 2 of them to do the same trick? Probably not. But let's have a gander at his war scroll.
Yeah, his stat wheel is fairly, well, ordinary, I would say, for a hero character. 5 move, 4 up save, 7 bravery, 5 wounds. Not the most durable, but that's his theme. We've got going on with Tzeentch. You're not durable pretty much anywhere. He has, as far as I can see, 3 weapon attacks.
Yep.
Which is really nice. Like 3 attacks with the blazing swords, 3 up, 4 up, 1 rend, 1 damage. Then 3 attacks with the threshing flail, 4 up, 3 up, no rend, 1 damage. and 1 attack with the Staff of Tzeentch, 5 to hit, 4 to wound, no rend, D3. Obviously the sword would be the most impressive weapon he has going on. Okay, I'm very sorry.
That's right, no worries. Yeah, so with the weapon options there, the blazing sword is, on average, is going to do the most out of there. You can look at the Staff of Tzeentch and you think that has got a D3 damage, but it is a 5 to hit. So chances are that's not really going to go off.
And no rend.
Yeah, I would be, for such a small thing, imagine getting the wound through and then the opponent goes, yep, saves, and you go, for fuck's sake. You'd be annoyed, wouldn't you? I'd say like he's got a 4-up save, which, like you say, Tzeentch isn't there for its armour. But for a guy who wears a lot of it, a 4 is not bad. I'm just looking at the massive, like, metallic, like, spike he's got on his shoulder pad. Like, how heavy would that be to cover? I mean, like, I don't know if he's compensating because of the massive other growth on his other shoulder, but, like, Jesus Christ, that would not help things. Like, you would, if you shoulder barge things, that'd be good. But I feel like the enemy could just dodge out the. That's not. No wonder it's not an attack characteristic. Anyway.
If I was World Riding, just for that look, I would give him impact damage on the charge.
Yeah,
charging shoulder first.
I think so. I think make him do D3 mortal wounds on the charge, because then he would have the same charge damage as the massive Cauldron Dragon from Forge World, which completely that annoys me so much. It's like it's not even like it automatically does D3 mortal wounds. It's like on a dice roll, it may do D3 mortal wounds.
Is it a 2-up at least?
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, that's a discussion and a model to build another time. Yes, so his abilities. Right, the first one is Disruptor of the Arcane. So you can reroll Unbinding and Dispelling rolls for this model, and we'll find out why that is very good in a moment. Which I'll let you actually take us through this one, Max. What's the cool thing about this model?
Well, the cool thing about this model is the Vessel of Chaos ability. If this model successfully unbinds a spell that is possible for it to cast, it can immediately attempt to cast the spell, even if it is the enemy in the enemy hero phase. If that spell is successfully cast, it cannot be unbound. That is really cool. You're effectively stealing your opponent's spells away to use them yourself.
Yeah, that is basically purely why, if you've heard of the Curseling before, but you don't know loads about Tzeentch, this is why you have heard of his name, because of that ability. Which is, we've heard perfect examples where, like, he will steal, like, when I say perfect examples, I mean examples that happened against me, when he steals things like Curse of Years, when it was really good, Hands of Dust, like, he can steal all those very nasty spells.
Yes. However, as the Battle Tomes and Age of Sigmar has been progressing, I think he's lost some of the flavor of this ability, because more and more abilities became keyword locked, as in select an ogre unit to give them +1 attack. That one won't do you any good, for example.
Yeah, I suppose it's also like the Chaos Sorcerer Lord on Foot for Slaves of Darkness. That was like pick a Chaos unit, gets real like 1s to hit and wound, and that's like generally a very nice ability. But that's only against. Well, that's only for his Slaves of Darkness units now, not just Chaos units, so it wouldn't really be effective for this guy. Like, you're right, things have been locked into Battle Tomes or keyworded. But, you know, like, if...
Any sort of offensive spell is perfectly game for him. Buff spells, not so much, because those tend to be locked towards a certain unit type within the Battle Tome of your opponent. But whatever does mortal wounds, well, it just says select an enemy, so you can use that just fine.
Sorry, just to say, like, in case anyone's asking this, if he unbinds a endless spell, does that mean he can cast the endless spell? Because that would be a no, wouldn't it?
No. It just says when he successfully unbinds a spell, not when he successfully dispels a spell. And that's the crucial difference between endless spells and ordinary magic.
Got ya. That's cool, just to clear that up. Surprise, surprise, this model is a wizard. It can attempt to cast 2 spells in your hero phase and attempt to unbind 2 spells in the enemy hero phase. It knows the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Glean magic spells. So a 2-cast wizard already, and also 2 unbind wizard, particularly with his ability, it's not bad. But that's pretty good going.
Oh yeah, he's when you want someone to unbind and you don't want it to be a lot of change, this would be my second choice.
Yeah, and he's 160 points.
Yes, for the cost with that 2-cast wizard for 160 points, that's just good, especially when it can also unbind too. And fling the spells right back at your opponent. That's just fun.
Yeah, and especially where you've got good spells in this book to choose from. And what is his Glean magic like? Do you want to take us through that?
Glean magic has a casting value of 3. If successfully cast, pick one enemy wizard within 24 of this caster and visible to them. Pick one spell from that wizard's war scroll that is possible for this model to cast and roll a die. On a 3-up, the caster knows that spell for the rest of the battle.
So not even just like he can cast it once, actually, so the rest of the battle, and within 24 inches, not even wholly, so that is a big range. It means that you're not just waiting for your opponent to try and cast that spell so you can try and steal it. He can.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure how significant that part is, but it just says select an enemy wizard, meaning you can also potentially steal spells from ordinary units that count as wizards, such as Carrick Acolytes, Sisters of the Thorn, if I remember correctly, and so on.
You can. I just don't know how much of those unit spells are, like we were saying, sort of a keyword, like keyword specific.
That's also where my knowledge ends. I don't use these units very much.
I think I know where you're coming from, because this is the Thorn is a good spell, but I think that changed to Wanderer units, maybe. But you know, if you're playing like a doubles game and like your ally is a Wanderer's army and your opponent somehow's got a Wanderer's army as well, I mean, you're laughing, aren't you, at that point? But like casting on a 3,
yes,
almost, particularly in this army, almost guaranteed to go off. The only tricky thing will be rolling the 3-up.
Yes, also that 3-up to roll is another summoning point for you. That easy.
Yeah. I think. Is there a spell? I was trying to remember. Is there a spell in this army you can cast to get a summoning point? Oh no, it's completely changed now. I'm thinking of the dice. Forgive me.
Yeah, for the fate dice.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's it. But no, so I would say a model that there's not really, you know, the last. Well, I said the last one, the first one we reviewed, like the Magister on Disc. We go like, oh, it's a shame it's a bit like that, and this model all round is pretty solid for what it's doing. It's got like one job to do, which is steal the enemy's magic and cast spells, and it does that pretty well.
Yeah, it doesn't work in every matchup with stealing the magic, but it can at least unbind too. And even if it wasn't competitive in a particular matchup, it's still a very, very fun model, and I would probably buy that one on that alone.
Yes, it's you know, like I've never played this model, but I've played against it. And playing against it with like an Arcan and Nagash list, it does make me, you know, like put, I don't know, like butterflies in your stomach or something every time you go, well, to cast one of those big spells, or even just to be within 24 inches of the sky, because you do not want him to steal those nasty spells of yours.
What was it called again? Touch of Ashes?
You got Hands of Dust, which is the one where you put the like basically the only sort of one of the only like rules to survive from like the first of Age Sigmar, which is like one of those funny rules, but I love it because and I say I love it because you know got a 50-50 chance to just one shot an enemy monster, especially like before when it was like, oh, if it's only within 3 inches stuff, and then like spell portals came out, and it's just like there's no challenge to this anymore. It's like shooting a giraffe with a high velocity rifle. There's no skill to it. It is just like boom. And like I remember when I went to Warhammer World tournament and I fought against a ogre army, and they had like a really cool model from that army. That's like the incarnate element of fire or something, like one of those old Destruction Forward World models, like the really old ones. I saw it and I was like, why has someone brought a non-GW model that was that old, but it was really massive and it was really cool. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I can't wait to see what it does in the game. But I was also like, spell portal, it's gone, turn 1.
But could you imagine the Curseling telling a Nagash, no you?
Yeah.
While standing right next to him, spell portal.
It'd just be one of those moments where you go like, oh my god, what have I allowed to happen here? And it's It's those things you remember, like if he one-shotted Nagash back and killed him. It's like, I don't know, like in the ogre game, for example, I was then the next turn in his turn or turn 1, I was charged by an ogre tyrant, and ogre tyrant killed Nagash from full wounds. And it's those things you remember. So this guy managed to one-shot him. This guy has stolen Curse of Years from me and wiped out a unit of 4 Morgos Archai. Yeah, that's right. A unit with a 5-up mortal wound save as well, and it's like, fucking hell. Like, and doesn't matter if this guy didn't do anything else in the game. He's already made his points worth.
Yeah, it's just so fun, especially since the spell he throws back cannot be unbound.
Yeah, it's a really nice character model, and we've seen that a little bit now because we've seen like the Magister could turn itself into a Chaos Spawn. This guy basically is like a mini game within the game, which I love. Those sort of things you can do. Yeah, I take this model. He'll add a lot of fun to your game. So yeah, I like him. 160 points for a 2-cost wizard. He could, depending on your list, I'd say he could go in a competitive list.
Definitely. I like him.
Cool. Right. So the next thing in the book, if you are following along in the book, is going to be the Eyes of the Nine. Now, I reviewed those with Martin in an older Tzeentch video. I don't think really they've changed in the new book. And they are lovely models, but Walls Rise, I think they're a bit poop. So we won't be discussing those ones. So the next one is going to be the Fatemaster. So this is a little bit of an older model, I would say. A model that is for £25. That is quite expensive. But let us see what his rules are. He is one of those models that is kind of aimed towards combat, which is surprising in a Tzeentch army. He's going to cost you, if I can find him in the book, Fatemaster, he's going to cost you 120 points. So 20 points more than a Magister on foot, but 20 points cheaper than a Magister on disc. He's got a movement of 16 inches, save of 4+, wounds of 6, bravery 8. He's got a fire glaive of Tzeentch, which is 2-inch range, 3 attack, 3 to hit, force to win, no rend, and D3 damage. And the teeth of horns of his disc is 1-inch range, D3 attacks, force to hit, freeze wind, master rend, and D3 damage. So sort of standard there for the disc. So there's his basic stats. What are we thinking about this, Max?
I think I would call this guy the assassin in the Tzeentch list, pretty much. He is the type of guy that is capable of going after small support heroes one-on-one and beat them fairly reliably. Overall, nice attacks, but the 3s and 4s are not the most reliable weapon attacks.
And he hasn't got that rend on that fire glaive, has he? But for a weapon that's basically built-in fire.
Yeah, that's very true. But, I mean, at least he can have up to 6 hits in a combat phase, so something's got to get through, most likely.
Yeah, like 6 hits, and what if everything went well, he could do 18 damage. Not that he is going to do that, but, like, he has potential.
He's fast, he's somewhat durable for a Tzeentch unit, especially when we look at his abilities after that. And D3 damage on everything. I mean, one thing going through is already going to hurt.
Yeah, particularly, like you say, if he's a bit of an assassin, if he goes after those enemy sorcerers that tend to have like a 5-up save or something,
yeah,
he's going to take a bit of damage out.
I have to think of my poor Gloomspite Gitz shamans sitting there thinking of nothing evil, or probably everything evil, but not this guy.
Yeah, I can't imagine they've got 4 wounds, the Gloomspite Gitz shamans?
Yes.
Yeah, almost 1 damage isn't, well, 1 attack is enough to kill them. So yeah, and then, well, like I say, when we go into the ability, so the discounts of his mounts for command traits and all that sort of thing. He can fly with his disc, obviously. He's got the hovering disc of Tzeentch, what you're going to mention. So add 2 to save rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target this model, unless the attacking unit is a monster or can fly. That is very nice. It's a shame the Magister doesn't have that on the disc.
That's very true. That might help the Magister out a bit, because just looking at the rule, this guy has pretty much a natural 2-up armor save against anything that cannot fly or isn't a monster.
Which is most things in the game.
Yeah, and especially his prime targets, squishy support heroes in the backline.
Oh yeah, I mean, like if this guy's got 6 wounds as well, like you're saying, which is good because of the disc gives the extra wound. And if you're to send this guy out after those enemy sorcerers, wizards, mages, and you think, oh, a lot of those wizards have like a D3 attack, D3 damage attack with their staff, and then maybe a 1 attack, 1 damage with like a sword. So you think maybe they could do a bit of damage to my Fatemaster. They're more likely you're going to be saving on 2s. So he's going to, and then unless the enemy decides they need to get rid of this guy, he's going to be fairly safe and probably survive towards the end.
Yeah, being rid of him with just little tiny melee attacks, it's going to be difficult unless your opponent wants to invest a turn and chase him down with something a bit larger or something flying.
And if they are doing that, then that's probably a good thing for you as well, because if they're doing that for him, they're not focusing on other stuff.
Especially since the Fatemaster is also fairly low in points, if I remember correctly. If I could find it, though.
120 points. Pretty solid.
Yeah, for that the 2-up save for 120 points in most cases is very good.
Yeah, and like, if God knows why you'd want to do this, but if you wanted to, you could put a Mystic Shield on him to make him reroll ones. So he's got a Soulbound Shield as well, which is good. So each time this model is affected by a spell or end a spell, you can roll a dice. If you do so, on a 4+, ignore the effect of that spell or end a spell on this model. So that's things like this guy's going after all those wizards. If they try and put spells on him, well, he's got a 4-up shrug. If he gets stuck in a Skaven vortex, because he is flying, he's a bit worried about it. On a 4-up, he's going to ignore that. That is good, because I mean, like, a lot of those shield ignoring spells are like on a 5, so 4.
Yeah, so this guy is just, well, he's a magic assassin. He assassinates mages, which is kind of paradoxical in a mage army, but it works. It's great.
Yeah, it's cool because I didn't like this guy when I first looked at him, and this is when I was doing a bit of a Tzeentch army years ago, Slaves of Darkness, and I was disappointed with him. But in the same, I think when the first Disciples of the Book of Tzeentch came out, that sort of time, and that's because I looked at this guy wrongly. I looked at him like I want him to be like my combat general to lead my melee forces into battle. But that's not this guy. It's like you said, you've hit it on the head when you just say he is an assassin, he does his own thing. And because he's so fast, he doesn't need to be like surrounded by his followers. He's not a general, is he?
Well, he kind of is. His command ability is fairly good if you want to use him as such. But maybe with a small support squadron of other fast flying units such as Zangor Enlightened, or maybe Screamers if you really want Screamers for whatever reason. Units that can keep up with him. But I would still probably use him most effectively as an assassin of squishy backline support characters.
Yeah, and I'll let you go through his command ability as well, because I haven't done that.
Okay, his command ability is called Lord of Fate. You can use this command ability at the start of your hero phase. If you do so, pick a friendly model with this command ability. Until your next hero phase, you can re-roll hit rolls for attacks made by friendly Tzeentch units wholly within 9 of this model. That is a very good command ability. Overall, just re-rolling hits is great. The range is a little short, but he's fast enough to not really care about that short range. In most cases.
Yeah, this guy, because of his speed, he can get to where he needs to with that ability. Not really too worried about that.
Yeah, and with a small squadron of equally fast units at his side, he can fairly reliably kill everything. Also, when you consider he is always in range of himself, he has the Tzeentch keyword, so he will also reroll his hit rolls.
That's very
making his attacks more reliable.
I was going to say, is this guy, is he, for the little assassination, assassin what he is Is it worth him just being, instead of one assassin, being a bit of a squad where you have him and 3 enlightened? Is that something that...
I could see that working out pretty well if you really want that one objective that your opponent parked that wizard on. Go for it. That would work really well.
Yeah, because if you send this guy in with... I've said, if we sent him in to kill an enemy sorcerer, you look at the stats and you think, he should be able to kill that sorcerer, but, you know, chances are you might, you know, fluff your dice or something. But if you send this guy in with a unit of 3 enlightened, might seem a bit overkill of points investment, but that one sorcerer is going to die. That unit of 10 ghouls or something is going to die.
Yeah, the only reason I'm not more enthusiastic about this ability is that the unit you would most likely pair him with, the Zango Enlightened on Disc, already have a way to reroll their hit rolls.
Oh, they see the future, or they see the past, or something.
I think it's called Guided by Fate, where when something else within three of them fought first, they can reroll hits and wounds.
Cool. We'll get to them, won't we, in a bit, and we'll see that. But yeah, that's true. But even just not for the command ability, an assassination squad could be quite cool.
Well, even if you want this command ability, you could just fly him to the center of your acolyte formations and just reroll hits for a round. They're not the best melee fighters, but it's certainly going to help.
Yeah, he could, like I say, he can move up the Carrick Acolytes, trigger this for that one turn that the Carrick Acolytes needed to do that damage, and after that, then he goes around assassinating all the support characters.
Yeah, but since you activate this in the hero phase, be very careful to, at the start of the combat phase, not pile outside of wholly within 9 of them.
Yes, because there's no immediate way for this guy to move back in range again for the hero phase to be all within. Because it is... Yes, wholly within, like you say, yeah.
Yeah, you activate it, you move him, you're wholly within 9, but then all of a sudden you figure out, oh, I could pile in over here, so you get one more attack, and they're not rerolling anymore.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's not like wholly within 18, like you can kind of like not worry too much about the restriction. Like 9 is... And if you are playing competitive games and stuff, like, you know, to get that extra few attacks, you piled a bit out of range, and then it gets to the hero phase, and then you go, say to your opponent, "Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to be out of range there," and you've deliberately got like 4 models out of range, and it's like, well, you did do that to get the extra attack, so.
Yeah, and also, of course, what we just said for the Carrick Acolytes works just the same or even better so on your ordinary Zangors on foot.
Definitely. Especially multiple attacks. Yeah, so actually, to be fair, I've enjoyed our little talk through this guy because I thought quite negatively about him, but as a little assassination piece, I like him. And he has got a double, I don't know what the saying is, he has got another side to his coin where he can be a support piece if you want him to. For 120 points, pretty solid.
Yep.
I'd say if he had like a 5-up standard save, it would be like, oh, but no, pretty solid.
Yeah, he's cheap, versatile, fast. You can tap objectives with him, you can assassinate, you can move him in for this little bit of support.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'd say if you've got a Magister on Disc still on sprue somewhere, I'd convert that up to be one of these.
That could be cool, giving him a little glaive instead of his staff.
Yeah,
I'd
cool. Give him a glaive, give him a shield, him or her, whatever it is. And if you can't find